Do women belong in engineering? Interesting topic. Let's talk about that. Welcome to another episode of The Good, Bad, and Ugly of Business. I'm your host, Catryn Becker, and in this podcast, we talk to all sorts of interesting and successful people so we can learn what failures they have gone through to get them to this place of success. Because while a smart person learns from their own mistakes, a genius learns from the mistakes of others. So today I've got a great guest here for you. She comes from something called AEC, which is Architect, Engineering, and Construction World. And she helps find the best fit for you. So when you're looking to change careers or move careers within your job, you'll always find a home. So Bryce Batts, co-founder of Career Collective, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
I am so excited to be here because, as my listeners know, and as you just learned, I came from engineering. And as a woman in a field that is male dominated, there are just some different things that we have to learn and adjust to. And, the question I asked at the beginning, do women belong in engineering, is a question that was actually asked to me when I was a freshman in college by another student where I went to school, which it just seems insane, right?
Yeah, I'm shaking my head because that is absolutely insane. I can't even believe anyone would ask that. And, even in the 2000s, it's not 1950.
Right? And he was bold enough to ask. So you have to wonder, like, how many other people are thinking it and just
Sure.
have enough sense not to say it.
Oh, that's wild. And of course, 100% women belong in engineering. And I think they make up like 20% of the AEC industry. Last time I saw that statistic, and obviously we need a lot more women in this male dominated industry for
And that's
sure.
a similar case to the space that you are in staffing and recruiting. That's a bit of a male dominated field as well, right?
It is, and especially for the industry that I work in, the firm I was at before we opened Career Collective, I was the only female, which was very
Oh,
interesting.
wow.
Yeah, and it was a small firm and they had no maternity leave. So when I went, when I had my first daughter, I think I got a couple weeks off, and then with the second one, I got 2 weeks off.
Woohoo!
Absolutely insane.
When I had my kids and I was breastfeeding and working, I, asked someone like, where can I go to do this? And they're like, well, can't you just use a bathroom? And I was like, no.
Yeah, because I'd love to sit on the bathroom floor and pump. That's
Right, to
great.
feed my children their entire meal, their entire food source.
And it's still a problem. Unfortunately, I was talking to another woman who's in the AEC industry. She does marketing, and we were talking about a particular client we had both worked with. Beautiful brand new building that they've just built, and it had no mother's room, nowhere to pump. I'm like, why are we not thinking of these things now in 2024? And this may have been a few years ago when they started the building, but these are
No.
things we have to take into account, especially if we want to pull more women into the industry. And then if we want to keep them,
Yeah.
there are things we have to think about, flexible jobs, place to pump, things like that.
All of those things. So, with the challenges of being in a male dominated field of just the AEC, and then a male dominated sector of that in recruiting, what are some of the challenges that you've seen, and what are some of the strategies you've had to overcome them?
Yeah, I think unfortunately we do have to educate our counterparts as to what we need, but also I think it can be an advantage for women. I had a really amazing client base, and being in the role that I'm in now, have turned most of them over to my team. But I had such great relationships with them because I think I did come from a feminine energy, a female perspective of wanting to be solution focused and not just there to fill one job or two jobs. I really wanted to partner with them. So I was listening more, as most women do. I was more empathetic. And now it is our goal to have a very balanced workforce here at Career Collective where we have equal number, if not more, women than men.
It's a bit of a different mentality. I mean, I have had a taste of what recruiting looks like. I did a stint when I was transitioning from career into entrepreneurship where I was working for the networking industry, BNI. and I was
Mm,
helping to form new chapters. And so in a way, finding these new people was a bit of recruiting. And not all of the people who were starting chapters were like this, but I did notice with some of the men, there was kind of this hunter sort of vibe of like, just get warm seats in the place, and that's what we need to do. Whereas I really wanted to make sure that it was a good fit for the individual, for the team that we were
right.
creating, because you spend like 5 to 6 hours a week with your BNI group, so between meetings and one-on-ones and other things. So it was really important to me to find right fit.
Mhm.
Do you see this as well?
Yeah, definitely. We don't want just a warm body or just butts in seats. We want to make that match. And it is head hunting. People call us headhunters for a reason. We're out there hunting for the right talent. And I know people get annoyed with recruiters constantly showing up in their LinkedIn inbox. But honestly, we're just trying to make the right match. And I always felt it was my personal mission if I was working with a client to find them that great fit. And so I would gather as much information about the client as possible and then pass on what I could to the candidate to make sure there's that good match there. And we tell the candidate too in the beginning, that first conversation, it really is just an exploratory call to see if what you have matches up with what they want. And then you can decide from there if you want to continue the conversation. And it's great when it's a great match on both sides and the hire happens. But when it doesn't, I would rather cut ties early on in the interview process than try to place someone and then find out 30, 60, 90 days later that they're not a good fit, or even a year later, because it's a big expense for the employer.
Can you kind of, lift back the veil a little bit on how that works for payments? Because I've only ever been on the, candidate side of receiving those LinkedIn messages. So I don't really know exactly how it works within a firm like Career Collective.
Yeah, so our clients pay our fees, and they range anywhere from 20 to 30%. And that is a percentage of the candidate's first year base salary. So, if an engineer is making $100,000, that could be a $25,000 fee that the client's paying to bring them on board. So we want to make sure they're the right fit and vet them as much as possible up front, and have the client do that as well, whether that's giving them a software test or, drug screen and background, checking references, which we do handle. But it's having all those conversations up front so we can make sure it's a good fit. And a lot of the firms we work with are small to mid-sized firms, just because the huge ones have an in-house recruiting team. So then it's relying on their onboarding process as well to make sure the person is integrated well, trained well from the beginning. So as a company, you can assess the type of job that they're going to do and if they're a fit.
How do you, like, when you're a client and you're trying to get a new client, the firm itself, how does that conversation go? And are there ever any firms where you're like, "Ugh, I'm not sure that this is the right fit for me to work with"?
Yeah, I would say this is like any service-based business. You can speak from a coaching perspective or almost anything. When the client is not a good fit, there's typically red flags from the very beginning. And that could start with them beating you up on the fee, or not even being communicative from the beginning, because we can only provide the best service based on the communication that we get from the client. There's a lot of information we need up front so we can sell the opportunity to the candidate.
Sure.
These companies are competing for candidates, and they're competing with a lot of different firms. So we need to know, what are your benefits? What do you have competitive pay? What are the things that make you stand out? Is it your culture? Is it unlimited PTO? These are all things we want to know up front. And then we want to know what the process is going to look like as well. Is it one interview and done? Is it 4 interviews? Just so we can set the tone and the pace. Because oftentimes these candidates are interviewing with 3 or 4 different companies. And just like dating, the timing can be off, unfortunately. We'll tell our clients to slow down when they need to, because if, say you interview with one of my clients and they make you an offer, but you still have 4 more interviews to go on with 4 other different companies. Unfortunately, it's just human nature. You're probably going to forget about the first one you interviewed with.
Mm,
Then when all the rest of them ask you about the offer that you've already received, you tell them that offer and they're going to try to match it or just one up it.
right, right. Oh, and that, so are there, do you help like negotiate like the countering going back and forth? Kind of
We
like
do.
mediator.
It is, and I would say a recruiter's worst nightmare is a candidate who takes a counteroffer because they've gone through the interview process. We've gotten them an offer with one company or multiple companies, and then they decide to stay with their current firm
Mm,
because they have made them a counteroffer, which I always think is a bad idea. Take me out of it, but now your company knows you're looking for a new job. They know you're not happy, but they can't afford to lose you. So to put a Band-Aid on the situation, they give you more money. But typically you're not looking just because of money. There's also some other underlying factors. So have those things been improved upon? And if not, in a year, you typically find those people looking for a new job all over again.
yeah, because what does the saying go? Something like people don't leave companies, bad companies, they leave bad managers or something like that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so unless you address the underlying cause.
Yep.
And so when you're coming up with these candidates, I mean, yes, there's the ones that are looking, but what about the ones that haven't been looking? Like they are happy where they are, but it also could be a case of they don't know what else is out there and maybe they haven't dreamed big enough.
Exactly. Yeah. I always think it's great to just have a conversation. And that's why I say have the conversation with the recruiter, find out if it's something you're interested in, and potentially have a call with that company and see if it's something that makes sense for you. A lot of people are worried about confidentiality. I know AEC is a really small space, small industry. But they know that. They know, Joe Schmo down the street and his firm that he runs, and then his brother Bob that runs the other firm, and they know to keep it confidential. Honestly, that is how small it can be, especially in some cities.
That's crazy. So Career Collective, you're located in Raleigh, North Carolina. Your partner, Edwin, is he also in Raleigh?
He is. So we worked at a different firm together for over 10 years, and he and I were always vying for the number 1 or 2 sales spot. So we knew we'd make good teammates. We both have a really strong work ethic, but come at leadership from different angles. And I think that's what's made the partnership so successful is that we are so different, but still have the same end goal in mind. But he was in Denver and I was here in Raleigh. I have a family, so he said, I'll move to you. Raleigh's a great place to open a business. So our headquarters is here in Raleigh, and then we've got another office in Tampa.
Oh, that's really fantastic. I love I love just exploring partnerships. You know, I had another guest on who talked about her current partnership has been really successful because of how similar they are and had an experience before where she had a very vastly different person and ultimately it didn't work out. So I love to kind of explore a little bit more about, the similarities and the differences and how you and Edwin kind of complete one another.
Yes. I've been married 19 years. I have 2 kids.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I feel like I know what it takes to make a successful partnership. And in partnering with him, I joked with all of my friends, I'm like, it's like being married to a second man because we have to talk finances. We have to talk about, really hard things. And in the 2.5 years, yes, we've had ups and downs and we've had some personal things happen as you would imagine. So it's being able to have those hard conversations and not stuff everything down. I'm not one to like, oh, I just love being vulnerable and having these conversations daily. I don't like everyone else. But you learn that that's what you have to do. So it's a lot of communication. We started off in a small co-working space. So it was very intimate, moved into a larger one, and then moved across the street. And now we have the whole 4th floor of this bank building. So it gives us lots of space. However, he and I share an office. It's large, but we're in there together all day, every day, and which is nice because we are able to discuss anything that comes up, he and I. And as I mentioned, like we're both very sales minded. We both knew we wanted to create a culture that was unlike the one we came from, because that was really what was lacking, was the culture and a place where you could be promoted beyond just being a recruiter or an account manager. So we have the same goals in place, but I will say he is very SOP driven. He's very detail oriented. I am more the marketing girl. I have a podcast. I'm about getting our name out there. So in those ways, we complement each other really
Mm.
well.
Oh, that's really such an important distinction to have. It's almost like the left brain thinker and the right brain thinker, and having
Yeah.
those two halves come together
Yep.
in a really harmonious way.
I will be the first to tell you, I am not detail oriented, nor do I want to do any of that. I'm like, I just want to sell it and talk to clients and go to business, development events and networking things.
Oh, I love that. So the firm before was also in the AEC
It
industry?
was, yeah. So funny enough, when we left, there's always some trepidation there and some fear on my end because I wasn't the sole breadwinner, but I will tell you, I made more money than my husband, and we have two kids, and I had a lot to think about when it came to opening a business. Um, so I had to put a lot of thought into if it was something I want to do, but my clients came, a lot of them contacted me after, and we decided to leave because we found out this is like such an insider
Oh.
story. We found out our non-competes no longer existed. Uh, quote unquote lost. I don't know what to say exactly, but we were able to leave, and so we decided to do it while we could. And I know that's changing a lot now too. It sounds like they're passing a new law that says non-competes are not going to be easily upheld. And there was some fear after we started. Would the old employer come after us? But there was no leg to stand on, so we felt comfortable moving forward.
And that feels like kind of like a sign, right? Like to
Yeah.
get that piece of information right when you're considering this.
Yes, yeah, for sure. And it's funny enough, I had clients who like looked me up on Facebook after. Um, yep.
Really?
And then others who just contacted me on LinkedIn, or my cell number had been my cell number forever. So they would text me like, hey, where'd you go? You're our favorite recruiter or our favorite, account manager. And I'm like, well, I can still work with you and I would love to reconnect.
But that must feel really good
It
to
did. It did.
have them reach out like that, because I mean, as easy as it is for us to connect in this day and age, I mean, I'm in Houston, you're in North Carolina, and for me, I feel like we could just be sitting in a coffee shop or something having this
Yeah.
conversation. But most people, like, just to even reach out to someone, like, I don't know about you, but I'll get a text message from a friend and be like, oh, I'm definitely going to respond to that, and then completely forget for weeks. So
I
for
know.
people to, right, like, I don't, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yes.
But for people to take that time and energy to seek you out says a lot about what you offer and what you bring and how you help people.
Well, thank you. I mean, that's a part of the job that I really love. And that's what we try to instill in our recruiters here, really developing those relationships and being solution focused, like I mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Well, and it's not like, and I did my research on you ahead of time, so I know that this wasn't something like you went to school to be a recruiter, right? And I don't think it's something that maybe, I don't know, maybe there's some people that go out and say, this is what I want to do. But what do you think are some of the characteristics that make a good recruiter?
Yeah, I feel like in the past, people just kind of fell into recruiting. It wasn't like you grow up and go, oh, I want to be a recruiter. I mean, I didn't even know that existed until I was getting my MBA, and I met a girl who worked for the old company and said, you should do this. And my husband's in the industry. She's like, and he was my boyfriend at the time. She was like, you should do it. You'll know people, blah, blah, blah. So I ended up, saying yes to that. But I think as a recruiter, it takes somebody who's resourceful. Because you got to be willing to, as you mentioned, hunt down that candidate and try to find them wherever they are. And then we jokingly say it's like professional stalking because you've got to find them, you've got to stay on them and keep following up. But I think more than anything, it takes tenacity, and because it is sales, it is so up and down, and you've got to be somebody who's pretty even keeled, so you don't get too high on the highs and too low on the lows, because every day is different. So, I think just going back to the basics and being willing to make the connections, make the calls, and then be constantly looking for good people for your clients, which takes knowing the clients well.
So you could have like a whole like stream of like past private investigators come on as recruiters. It's a whole new stream that was untapped potential.
That's right. And the industry's changed a lot too. Like, speaking of, we used to get a list of PEs when people got their professional engineering license. Like, okay, these are the people who've gotten their license, and we'll just call down that list. Well, now most people don't even answer their phones. So that's why you're messaging them through LinkedIn or Indeed, or you're texting them when you find their resume. I know personally my phone is turned off for numbers I don't know, because you would end up answering spam calls all day long.
All day. Yeah, I I recently had a spam call come through where, like, you know how the name shows up if it's registered, and it said actual person. And I almost answered just because I was like, that was clever, and I want to reward cleverness, but I didn't have the time at the moment. So I just took a screenshot of it and then hung up.
Like, an actual person is calling me.
Right. Like, oh my gosh, that's totally gonna convince me to do this.
So funny.
So thinking back on, your career and the different things you've done, you've had your MBA, you owned a textile shop, right? You've done all these different things. Do you think this is going to be something you continue to do for a long time? Do you feel like this is Career Collective is really ticking all those boxes for you?
I do, because I think I'm an entrepreneur at heart, which is why I was able to stay at the old company for so long. I worked remotely. I was one of the few who just ran my desk from home every day, which was great. Like, talking about being able to retain women in the workforce. I had two small kids. They're now 9 and 14, so I have a lot more flexibility. But at the time, I was able to take them where they needed to go. And then I went home and worked hard. And side note, all my male employees, or sorry, male colleagues, thought I must have had an assistant at home because I was able to get so much done. And I'm like, you don't get it. I'm paying for daycare for my kids. Of course, when I'm home, I'm working, and I'm working
Right.
not just watching Real Housewives. But I do love recruiting. And, for the longest time growing up, I thought I want to own a clothing store. I've always loved fashion. But they say you don't have to have a business for every passion that you have. And I think I learned that the hard way. Retail is really, really hard. So it was fun. I enjoyed being in the store and seeing my customers face to face.
Yeah.
That part was fun. Going to market and buying all the clothes was fun. But I also enjoy making money, and that's what's back to recruiting.
Yeah, I talk about this a lot with different people that I'm working with about, it's a tall order for your passion to fulfill you financially as well.
Yes. And I tried darn hard. It did not work.
So do you do for yourself then, as far as passions go and hobbies? And, how do you balance that as a mom, as a wife, as a business owner, and as fulfilling your job requirements?
Yeah, I'm loving the older ages that my kids are now, because we can go to the movies or go to a concert or just walk the dog together in the afternoon. So I love being with them. I am an extrovert. I like to be with people. So Seeing friends always fills my cup. I'm a crazy worker outer. I feel like for me, it is a way to relieve stress. So you will find me as one of those crazy people who gets up at 5 and goes to the gym because I like to get it done. And my family knows this. If I don't work out, I'm probably not going to be in the best mood. So I've got to work that into my day at some point. And I like doing it before I come into work because then I'm more awake. I've already done something really hard in my day and accomplished it. So I think mentally it sets you up for success. And if I go at lunch, sometimes I'm like, gosh, I am just dragging until I get that workout in at lunchtime.
I'm the same. I can't work out in anywhere time other than the morning. And I had a really great routine. I have 2 kids as well, similar ages, 12 and 10. And
Okay.
it's June as we're recording this. So we are still in this like weird transition from summer. And so my
Yeah.
entire schedule has kind of been thrown off and I haven't had the same morning routine. So I'm kind of been a little off kilter these last
I know
week.
it's hard. We just started summer as well, and it's a tough transition, and they call it Maycember. I'm like, there's so many things to
Oh,
do, and
right.
it's crazy. So we've checked that box, and now moving into June, I'm like, I look forward to summer too, because as moms, we don't have to stay on top of them to get homework done, and sports die down a little bit, so it's kind of a nice break.
Well, now I'm just schlepping them to camps and friends' houses and
Oh
other
yeah,
things. It's just
you're the
move.
taxi driver.
Yeah. Yeah. I find myself working much later hours in the summer because I'm so interrupted during the
Yeah,
day with them.
yep.
So my last question for you before we wrap up is, do you see yourself staying in the AEC field, or do you feel like there might be some potential down the road for Career Collective to open up to other industries?
Yeah, we have been exploring other industries, but mainly just thinking, researching a little, trying to decide if that's something we'll do down the road. And, I'll never say never. So I think that door is open. I recently found a financial controller for one of my architecture clients, and that was fun. So we're thinking maybe we'll start working some more ancillary roles for our AEC clients, because we do know the industry so well, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
Do you guys do like fractional workers as well? Or is it always like full-time positions?
For us, it's just full time. I know there's a need for some contract employees, especially lower level positions, but most of the time, the positions we're working on, our clients want someone who's going to be with them long term. So we're focused on those perm roles.
This has been such an enjoyable conversation, Bryce. I've really loved connecting with you and sharing, the work stuff and the personal stuff and the family stuff and all of that coming together. So thank you for being so open and sharing with us.
Oh, well, thank you. This has been so fun. And I mean, the industry as a former engineer yourself.
That's right. So for those listening who are thinking of, they're either already in the industry or thinking of joining the industry, please share how they can reach out and work with you.
Yeah, so our website is probably the best way. It's mycareercollective.com. And I live on LinkedIn. It is always open on my browser. So you can always find me on LinkedIn, Bryce Batts.
Perfect. And so they can reach out to you as candidates or as companies?
Definitely. Yep. And I would love to have a call or just chat with you in whatever way it's easiest for you.
Oh, that's perfect. And you work nationwide, right?
We sure do. Yep.
All right. So listeners, no matter where you are, if you're considering this industry, I've had quite a few engineers on here, so giving you quite a wide range to think of. Please reach out to Bryce so that you can get that white glove service to find the perfect home for you.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. And to the listeners, thank you for being here. I appreciate you so much. We wouldn't be here without you. Please make sure to like this episode, to rate the podcast, share it with someone who might find this interesting. And until next time, have a great day, everyone.